Hello, my name is Joy Munoz, and I'm going to be presenting my research on ADHD and learning. Attention deficit hyperactive disorder is a developmental disorder of self-control. It consists of obvious problems with attention span, impulse control, and activity level. Some stats for you is that 6.1 million children are diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactive disorder. 12.9% of them are boys, and in comparison to girls, that's 5.6%. How does it affect the brain? Well, it lowers volumes of gray matter. There's smaller brain regions that control executive functioning, and there's about a 2 to 3 year delayed maturation rate. Students with ADHD typically perform academically lower, and they display significantly more social impairments than typical peers. Later impaired maturation affects children in social contexts as well, with attention, focus, behavior, and learning. So ADHD has 3 subtypes. ADHD, which is inattentive type, hyperactive/impulsive type, and a combined type of both. Characteristics can be inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Impacts of ADHD can be academically, behaviorally, and socially. They really struggle socially as well. Some of the features are there is a delayed maturation in 5 regions of the brain by 2 to 3 years. There is less blood flow in the frontal lobes, and the prefrontal cortex carries out organization, working memory, and impulse control. So they're having the 2 to 3 year delay in the prefrontal cortex development, which is already not typically developed until after adolescence. So this really impacts children with ADHD because they're delayed even further. And it does control organization, working memory, and impulse control. So you can see how that is hard for them. As far as neural networks, the Dana Foundation states that when attention is needed, 3 neural networks respond. There's the alerting network, which tells the brain to prepare for incoming information. The orienting network, which tells the brain to take note of the source of information. And the third is executive attention, which filters out unimportant information and helps the person focus on vital information. So students with ADHD have difficulty with executive functioning. So this is the root of being prepared for incoming information and identifying the source for filtering relevant information. So without this internal organizational skill, the student will struggle with attention and processing information. Wilson and Conyers suggest that when thinking about strategies to help students with ADHD and attention, teachers need to approach this issue as difficulty with organizing and properly filtering incoming information, not necessarily the inability to pay attention. Now, this is a key aspect for teachers because it may look like inattention, but the student is actually overwhelmed by the information that they're getting thrown at them at once. And they have a difficulty filtering through what's important, what's not important. And this is a function that we typically do without even thinking about it. These kids don't necessarily have that function, so it really hurts them. Some helpful teacher tips is front-loading the information. So introduce it, talk a little bit about it first, let them process what you're talking about. Aid in processing, so help them with that processing. Also aid them with pre-sorting. So pre-sort the information before you give it to the students. If you have 50 fantastic facts about something, you may not necessarily need to give all that. Just filter it down yourself ahead of time with the most important things that they need to know and keep it simple. Organizing information. So we talked about this. Kids have ADHD. I give the analogy of this messy desk you see on the PowerPoint. And I know you've all seen this messy desk in your room before. It's all this papers crinkled up and stacked up on top of the organizing folders that you gave them. So, and everything's just, spilling out everywhere. They really have that going on. It's difficult for them to organize physical things, and it's even more so for them to organize their thoughts. So this is also going on inside their brain too. They struggle to filter information received. They are disorganized, and they process information more slowly at times because they are literally sitting there trying to process the first step while everybody else keeps going. So how can you help? First of all, we talked about pre-sorting information. Use outlines, graphic organizers, visual agendas, highlight, give them an outline of your lesson and highlight the important things they need to be paying attention to. Let them doodle on the side and draw, visual memory tools for them for later. Remove unnecessary information from your lesson, activate pre-knowledge, front load information, review, and keep new concepts, steps, and ideas to a minimum. How also can you help? Anchor charts. Keep a clean, decluttered classroom. All the fantastic millions of posters you have up may be really difficult in helping them to focus because they're paying attention to that and they're overwhelmed by all the stimuli. Regarding incentives and consequences, Dr. Barkley says this fantastic quote, and he says, positives before negatives. Remember, these children get a lot of negative feedback, probably all the time because of their impulsive behavior, and it's very difficult to behave in a normal social setting with these different drawbacks. So give them positive before you give them negative. So behavior-specific praise is very effective, and a lot of research has been done on that. Don't just give them generic cliche praise or big class praise. You want to give them specific behavior praise and catch them doing something great. So if you can catch little Johnny sitting in his chair for 1 minute as opposed to hopping out of it or whatever, catch him sitting there and say, Johnny, I love how you're sitting in your chair ready to learn. So use positive and keep it real, be genuine. Incentives and positive feedback need to come immediately. Use things like sticker charts, stamps, points. Even if you have to make your incentive chart a little bigger for them because you're giving them so often this positive feedback, do that, because having that constant feedback helps them stay on track because they have a difficult time because of ADHD with the intrinsic motivations. So you need to help them stay motivated. So catch them doing something worthy of praise. And then lastly, consequences need to be immediate and consistent. So if you do have to use consequences, immediate and consistent. Work requiring focus needs to be given in the morning. This is also another research-driven tip. Executive functioning, prefrontal cortex, the brain's control tower. So this controls their problem solving, planning, thinking, emotions and personality, and also working memory. Decrease number of items to learn or to remember, and decrease steps to accomplish a task. So this really cool anchor chart breaks down division in very small, easy to remember steps, and it's also a visual they can refer to. Strategies to strengthen executive functioning for them. Teach them about their brain. It will help them build self-confidence, build self-efficacy, and have a growth mindset. Discuss how their brain works. Role play scenarios, model and practice social scenarios that they might have gotten wrong. Teach them to learn from their past. Kids with ADHD, they lack hindsight. So create visual or written sequencing, help them do activities like that. If this, then that, and help them discuss and help them learn how to do that and process. Other strategies to strengthen executive functioning. Teach them about their internal voice, help them process. The internal voice helps people problem solve, reason, evaluate, and self-regulate. So they don't have that. So we have to teach them to practice using an inner voice, an internal voice, help the student identify their inner voice, practice using self-talk, and anchor charts with internal questions to ask when facing hard choices. So this is, these are also my references. If you have any questions, these are fantastic resources for understanding ADHD. I hope I helped you understand it a little bit more and gave you some real life tips that you can use with your kiddos in class. But overall, just remember, they have a hard time. They get a lot of negative feedback. Speak some praise into their life, speak some positivity, and build them up. Thank you so much.